Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in with me today once more. I really do appreciate your time. So, on that note, I'd just like to thank all the people that have liked my videos so far, have subscribed, and especially the ones that have commented on the videos, especially about the lines of play that I could have done better. Sometimes when you're talking while playing, you tend to miss certain lines. You get so caught up in commenting and maybe explaining certain things that you just forget that there's an optimal play that can be done. So I know your time is valuable, which means that I'm gonna definitely try a lot harder to make the correct lines of play from now on. Just play a bit tighter when you're playing a blue deck, especially one with a lot of decisions in it. It's important to think through all of them and make sure you understand the board state. So I do appreciate all of you that have commented so far and let me know that there's other things I could have done better. I'm definitely listening and I'm learning, and hopefully I can bring you some better content in the future. And with that said, I'm bringing to you something super spicy today. Um, there has been a lot of talk about a Delver control list. Now, the thing with the Delver secrets list that we've tried in the past, they tend to fizzle out once we, get to turn 3 or 4. And if we're not constantly applying pressure or closing out the game, we have very low grindability power. It's hard for us to keep the pressure going into the late game while maintaining, card advantage or even tempo. Um, so that's why I'm trying to explore Delver of Secrets a bit more. Because I do like Delver of Secrets. I think there are a lot of non-interactive decks right now where a turn one threat backed up by counter magic and removal can be really strong. So I don't think I'm ready to give up on Delver quite yet. I think there's still a lot of room to tune, tweak, play around with. So with that said, that's what I'm bringing for you today. And as you can see in the list here, yes, you're not crazy. You do see that correctly. That is 4 copies of Cryptic Command. Um, and you can also see we're playing 22 lands. So this list looks really similar to Grixis control lists. With a few changes, the mana base is nearly identical. Basically, we swap the 4 Ancestral Vision that Grixis Control usually plays with 4 Delver of Secrets. This just allows us to play the tempo aggro game um, a lot better because Ancestral Vision, it's a great card, don't get me wrong, and Grixis Control can survive long enough to actually resolve it and get that card advantage. But we don't necessarily need it in every single matchup, so having a threat that can pressure our opponent's life total can be really important. So that's why we are sticking with Delver of Secrets in the main deck and having the copies of Ancestral Vision in the sideboard for the super grindy matchups like Jund, Junk, other Grixis decks, Jeskai decks, decks packed with removal where Delver of Secrets really is pretty poor. That's what our game plan is. And the 4 Cryptic Command is going to be our top end. It's how we're going to grind our opponent once we get into turn 4 and up. We hit that 4th land, and then we can start countering our opponent's big spells and abusing Snapcaster Mage. So bounce, draw a card, recast Snapcaster Mage, target something else in the graveyard. Just it's this grindability that if you've ever seen Grixis Control in action, you will totally understand what I mean by that. It just has a lot of staying power. It can really get behind on some pretty bad board states. Especially the thing with Cryptic Command is that it's so versatile. It has 4 very relevant modes, and while Triple Blue is a restrictive casting cost, it's made up by the fact that each one of the modes is relevant in almost every game state. Um, Draw a card, keep the gas going. Tap all creatures your opponent control. It's if you're racing, you can swing with your team. Tap your opponent's team on their turn. Swing again. If you're dealing with really troublesome permanents, game one that you don't expect, you can return that permanent to their hand. And then of course counter target spell. It's a great tempo play. Keep 4 mana up, counter a spell, draw a card. counterspell, tap a team. It's just so versatile on what it can do. Uh, Another difference in this list versus other control lists, we're still sticking with Mana Leak over Counter Squall. The reason I like Mana Leak over Counter Squall is because when we're playing Delver of Secrets, we still want to play the tempo game, and while in the long run, Countersquall is probably a better late game counterspell to draw, Mana Leak is just really great in the early game to keep the board clear, allow us to continually apply pressure with Delver of Secrets, um, which is why I do really like Mana Leak over Countersquall in a Delver control list. We're up to 3 Kolaghan's commands now versus 2 in a lot of Delver lists. But Grixis control does play 3. It's another card that really helps the grindability factor. Once again, a lot of just super relevant modes in a lot of different matchups. And it really combos well with Thought Scour. It really helps against opponent removal. Kolaghan's Command and Snapcaster Mage is a fantastic combo. And now because we're running 22 lands, we can really take advantage of all that mana to make some really value plays in the mid to late game. Whereas with a Delver list with 19 lands, sometimes you get stuck on 2 lands or 3 lands, and Snapcaster Mage into Kolaghan's Command is never really a possible play until you get to the really late game, or if you're flooding, which is another thing I'm going to talk about. This deck will be able to handle flood a lot better with 4 Cryptic Commands. You will always have something to do usually with all that mana. With 3 Kolaghan's Commands, you'll have something to do with that mana. With Tacit Girls, you'll have something to do with that mana. So we're not giving up too much early game power, and we're just extending our late game capabilities, which is something that Delver, from my experience, has really lacked. Is if you're not capitalizing on the early game, once you lose tempo, even just for a second, things could go really downhill. Which is why I like Cryptic Command to try to negate those drawbacks in the late game. From what I've tested so far, hopefully we're not just gonna be a bad display of Grixis control. You know, I can definitely see some situations where we would much rather have Ancestral main deck over Delver of Secrets. Like I said before, especially against the grind decks, the decks that pack a lot of removal. But I think that trade-off for this current meta is something we're okay with. Cryptic Command also gives us better game against Tron in the late game. Just it's a hard counter, keeps the gas going, lets you get in with Delver for another turn or two to really be able to close out the game with Lightning Bolt, K Command, Snap Bolt. There's a whole bunch of things you can do, and I really like just the power that this list presents. Something to note, we are running Sulfur Falls over, say, the fast lands. This is because we're running Cryptic Command. We do not want our 4th land to ever really enter tapped. And yes, we're playing Creeping Tarpit as well, but Creeping Tarpit has so much upside that we're not too worried about, having having a tapped land on turn 2 or 3 to be able to cast our turn 4 Cryptic Command. Onto the sideboard, it's going to look very similar to the previous Grixis Delver list that I've had. We still keep the counter package of 1 Counterspell, 1 Dispel. I don't think we want to go too high on the Counterspell package in the sideboard, especially because we have 4 Cryptics, but I have seen a lot of lists that pack, double Dispel, double Negate, because they really help the early game against combo decks, against Tron. But that's what we're sticking with, even against Burn as well, which is not the best Grixis matchup. We've got 1 Collective Brutality in the sideboard, which we've kept constant. We got the package of Ancestral Vision, just to get that extra grind power against a lot of decks. A new addition is Anger of the Gods. I think in a control build, Anger of the Gods can really shine. I tested the deck out a bit, and decks that go wide tend to be a problem sometimes, especially if those wide creatures have above 1 toughness. They can be very hard to deal with. Abzan Company is also on the rise, and Dredge is a deck that we have a lot of trouble dealing with. So having an extra card to hate against Dredge, even though Dredge is lower in the meta, um, 2 Surgicals plus an Anger of the Gods should hopefully get there. We still keep, is it Static Caster? I think, if you're a blue-red X deck, there's just no way you can leave the house without at least one of these. Engineered Explosives, once again, another catch-all sort of removal spell for a lot of different types of permanents. And then we got the package of Fulminator Mages here. Now that we have 3 Kolaghan's commands, now that we have more lands, I think Fulminator Mage is definitely suited for this type of build. In my previous builds of, say, straight Grixis Delver or Grixis with Young Pyromancer, I think Molten Rain is probably the correct choice, or some split between Molten Rain and even Crumble to Dust. And I was actually thinking of adding Crumble to Dust to this sideboard somewhere, maybe like -1 Fulminator, +1 Crumble, or -1 Anger, +1 Crumble. But I think this should also do just fine against big mana decks. I think we have definitely a better main game 1 than our previous lists, because we got both Delver and the Cryptics in the late game. We do have less counter spells. We're only running 2 spells and there's 2 mana leak in the early game. I'm running same package of removal, but I think the deck can get there. I think this is definitely a type of Grixis build that should be explored, and it's been explored in the past, but it lost a bit of steam. Grixis Control was the go-to choice with Ancestral Vision, and then straight Delver was the choice for the tempo builds. But I think this type of hybrid style deck could really catch people off guard. So yeah, thanks for watching the Deck Tech. We're gonna run this as usual through a modern competitive league. We'll see how we do. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see all 5 matches of the competitive league. Five matches is a lot, and I noticed there was a bit better reception with the 3 matches that I uploaded with a straight Grixis Delver list versus the 5 matches I uploaded with a Young Pyromancer. So let me know in the comments. I'd also like to just apologize for the noise issues that were in my previous videos. I totally understand where those issues are coming from now, and they will be easily avoided. So no more sound issues like that. But yep, thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next for match 1 in this modern competitive league with this spicy Grixis Delver Control. See you soon, guys.